Have you ever stumbled on a new culture in a different country and wished you knew about it earlier? Actually, this is a regular occurrence, but you can stop this from happening by finding out as much as you can about your destination. So, we put together the 10 things you should never do in a different country. Before we get into the video, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss anything we post. Tipping in Japan. If you've lived in the United States for most of your life, then you leave at least a 15% tip for servers whenever you eat out. However, this is something you should never do in another country unless you are absolutely sure it's okay. It may seem like it's just a regular thing, but some countries consider tipping in a restaurant to be rude. A good example is Japan. They are just not into the tipping culture, and this applies to almost everyone working in the service industry, including hotel staff and taxi drivers. Of course, it's not surprising that it's considered totally disgusting by the locals in Japan to blow your nose in front of others. No one wants to take a front row seat to that. On the other hand, it is surprisingly encouraged to loudly slurp your noodles while you eat. So, if you consider the tipping culture as not for you, feel free to pack up your bags and leave for Japan. You'll love it there. Up next is eating in front of a church in Italy. One of the many lovely sights in Italy is its spectacular churches and cathedrals. You just can't walk a few miles before you stop to stare at a beautiful one. However, while it's well within your right to spend a lot of time around religious buildings, never be tempted to sit for a meal on the church steps. Of course, we know that sightseeing can really work up an appetite. Anyone would get hungry after a long day of walking around and enjoying what the city has to offer. But if you must eat, it's better to step into a restaurant or any other building that is definitely not a church. So, what happens if you break this rule? Well, Italy takes this seriously, and anyone caught eating or drinking close to the main churches would have to pay a hefty fine. We bet you have better use for that money. So if you wish to stay out of trouble, pay a lot more attention to where you eat. Also, if you ever get tempted to have your bath in public fountains, please don't, or this will also cost you a few euros in fines. Up next is spitting or doing graffiti in Singapore. If you were to witness someone spitting in your presence, how would you feel? We're pretty sure you would think it's really disgusting, and the nation of Singapore agrees with you. In fact, they hate it so much that it is considered completely illegal to spit publicly in Singapore. Anyone who is anti-spitting will have no trouble living in this country. They are also pretty big on keeping their streets as clean as possible. So if you're chewing some gum or smoking a cigarette, never ever throw them out on the streets, or you could be fined for as much as $1,000 for littering. Yes, that much. Littering is a huge crime, just as much as not flushing a public toilet is. But anyway, it's just basic hygiene to flush a toilet after using it. Whether it's number 1 or 2, you shouldn't be ignoring this even in your home country. One more thing that Singaporeans hate is graffiti. Anyone who vandalizes any property with graffiti gets punished. And no, it's not fines this time, but caning. That could be a lot worse than paying fines. Up next, hand signals in Turkey. When leaving for a different country, there are a lot of habits you have to leave behind. If you're big on communicating with hand signals, this is one of them, especially if you're traveling to Turkey. You may be tempted to think that there is a universal hand signal that works in every country. This may or may not be true, but it's best not to test your assumptions. For example, do you know that the OK sign you're very much used to at home means something entirely different in Turkey? Just before the departure gate, you may have used this hand signal with your friends, and they responded immediately, but on the other side of those gates, doing the OK sign is considered offensive. It's actually used to accuse someone of being homosexual. Definitely different from the jolly hand signal you used to back in your country. Also, it's best not to play got your nose with kids in Turkey, or you could actually be making a hand signal known as the fig. This is actually the Turkish version of the swear word telling somebody to get the hell away from you. So, it's best you leave your hands in your pockets while in Turkey to avoid using insulting hand signals. Here's some bonus information. Never stroke your chin while talking to a woman. Even if your beard is itchy, you should scratch that itch when you're not directly facing a woman. It's considered a sign of sexual intent. That's some drama you can do without. Up next, smoking marijuana in Jamaica. More than a few people would consider this one really surprising. Most of us have that notion that smoking marijuana in Jamaica is as common as tourists on the street of Paris. Well, that's not the case. Some states in the United States have legalized cannabis, and you could light it up without the threat of jail time hovering over your head. But if you're traveling to Jamaica, it's best you save your stash stash at home until you're back. It's considered illegal to smoke marijuana in Jamaica. And yes, the air is not thick with weed smoke. It's not surprising that lots of tourists are caught smoking in Jamaica every year, thinking that it's perfectly okay to get high. However, this will get you in a lot of trouble instead. More than 2 ounces of marijuana on you will attract a jail term. If it's less than this, you'll be getting a huge fine instead. Trust us when we say you don't want to end up in prison in Jamaica. Word around is that it's a really tough place. You won't want to find out if this is true or not firsthand. Up next, touching people's heads in Malaysia. It could be perfectly fine in your country to ruffle a child's hair or pat their head as an endearing gesture. The children will smile politely and some will even laugh happily. But that's only if they are not in Malaysia. In this country, they are very serious about certain rules on body parts. Since the head is considered the most sacred part of the body in this culture, you should never touch anyone's head without their permission. The Malaysian culture considers this extremely rude, and it will definitely not end well if you do this without knowing. It's not just Malaysian culture that hates touching of heads. You can also find this rule in Cambodia, Laos, and Thailand. If you're traveling to any of these countries, you should keep your hands to yourself. Apart from this, don't show the bottom of your feet to anyone in Malaysia. This part of the body is considered dirty. Up next, celebrating Valentine's Day in Iran. If you're the type of person that dresses up in red colors and buys dozens of flowers on Valentine's Day for a loved one, this is a tradition you have to leave behind at home if you're headed for Iran. In some other countries, including the United States, you would have to spend a while apologizing if you forget to buy candy or flowers for your partner. But in Iran, you're not expected to do this as it is against the law of the land. The celebration has been outlawed in Iran as they consider it as a way of promoting Western culture. Considering that this is an Islamic nation, it's not so surprising. There's also a ban of symbols of red roses and hearts. So don't exchange gifts or acknowledge Valentine's Day in any way if you're in Iran, or you could get in a lot of trouble. While we celebrate it happily, it's a crime over there. Up next, clearing your plate in China. If there's one thing that is amazing about being in China, it's having a taste of their cuisine. This amazing country has restaurants that always have something interesting on their menu. As expected, they have unique guidelines and etiquettes for eating. If you're having a few meals with a local Chinese family, never clear your entire plate. What this means is that you should leave behind a few crumbs of food on your plate. While you may think that clearing out your plate is a sign that the meal was so delicious that you had to take every bite, the Chinese don't think so. They believe that it's a sign that you are still hungry. That's you saying that the host hasn't given you enough food. And of course, that's offensive. If the host thinks that it's just a sign that you're hungry for more food, you may find yourself with another full plate. Here's another rule you would find surprising. You may have grown up with the notion that burping at the dinner table is completely wrong. But in China, it's seen as a compliment to the chef and a sign of satisfaction with the meal. So start practicing your burping. Up next, wishing someone a happy birthday early in Germany. If you're big on saying happy birthday in advance, this is a habit you'll have to drop before stepping into Germany. Many countries, like the United States, consider birthday celebrations a big deal. In fact, it's seen as a super important milestone in someone's life, that people don't mind celebrating their birthdays on the weekend before their birthday if it falls on a weekday. So, it's not strange for someone whose birthday is on a Wednesday to throw a big birthday party 5 days early. But this tradition is not welcome in Germany. In fact, if you suggest that someone celebrates their birthday early, you'll get a lot of horrified stares. Why? It's considered extremely bad luck to do this. Some Germans believe that wishing someone a happy birthday early could bring death upon the person. Another tradition that has its roots in Germany is that of blowing out candles on a birthday cake. Have you ever thought about how it all started? Well, this can be traced back to a time when Germans placed extra large candles in the middle of a birthday cake, and the celebrant would blow it out to make their wishes come true. When you're in Germany, save your wishes for the exact birth date. Up next is using your left hand in India. No, we're not saying that you won't have to leave your left hand behind before entering India. Instead, there are a lot of things you shouldn't use your left hand for, as it's considered unclean. You don't want to go around disgusting your local friends by handing things over with your left hand. Using toilet paper is quite uncommon in India. This means that they use their left hand and water to clean up after a trip to the bathroom. That's for both number 1 and 2. Since it's common knowledge here No Indian person eats with their left hand. You'll have to be conscious of this if you're spending a while in India. You should also keep your PDA locked away in a briefcase when you're in India. Get it all out of your system before stepping out of the plane, as it's not okay to kiss in public in India. And there you have it. These are some things you should never do in a different country. What strange rule have you experienced while living in another country? Let me know in the comments. And that's a wrap. Thanks for watching.